The morning they tried to cage me in my own driveway, they thought they were hunting a soft target. They thought an aging man in a quiet neighborhood would panic when 3 SUVs boxed in his truck and a woman in oversized sunglasses started screaming about community security. They thought fear would loosen my tongue. They were wrong. My name isn't important. What matters is this: I did 2 tours overseas wearing the uniform of the United States Army. I've heard mortars whistle through the night. I've felt the ground shake under armored wheels. And I've learned that when someone blocks your exit and demands a code to your personal vault, they aren't protecting a neighborhood. They're declaring war. It started on a Tuesday, the kind that looks harmless. Sun cutting through the oak trees, sprinklers ticking in perfect suburban rhythm. I was backing my black F-150 out of the driveway, headed to a medical appointment at the VA. My knee, shrapnel souvenir, was acting up again. Halfway down the driveway, a white Range Rover slid sideways across the road, blocking me. Before I could react, a black Tahoe pulled in behind me, bumper almost kissing my tailgate. A third vehicle idled across the street. Boxed in. I didn't panic. I assessed. 3 vehicles. At least 4 people inside. No visible weapons. Aggressive positioning. Intent to intimidate. The driver's door of the Range Rover swung open. Out stepped Brenda Halverson, president of HOA. Perfect hair. Perfect lipstick. Perfect entitlement. She tapped on my window like she was summoning a waiter. I lowered it halfway. "Good morning, Mr. Carter," she said, syrup dripping off every word. "We need to discuss a matter of urgent community security." "You're blocking my vehicle," I replied evenly. "That's intentional." Of course it was. Behind her, 2 thick-necked men stepped out of the Tahoe. Not residents. I knew every resident. These men had earpieces and polo shirts with the HOA logo embroidered on the chest. Community compliance officers. That was new. Brenda leaned closer. "We've received reports that you've installed a high-grade security vault in your garage." I didn't blink. And per the updated HOA bylaws, all private security installations must be registered with the board, including access credentials. There it was. "You're asking for my vault code?" I asked. She smiled like she'd already won. "For inspection purposes." My pulse slowed instead of racing. I'd felt this before. Someone mistaking restraint for weakness. "You have 30 seconds to move your vehicles," I said calmly. "Or I call the sheriff." One of the thick-necked men stepped forward. "Sir, let's not escalate. We're authorized." "Authorized by who?" I asked. "By the HOA board." I almost laughed. The vault they were so curious about wasn't filled with gold bars or stacks of cash. It held personal documents, medals, letters from soldiers who didn't make it home. My father's folded flag, a sidearm locked legally and properly. My life. Brenda's voice sharpened. "We also have reason to believe you're storing restricted firearms." "I am a law-abiding citizen," I replied. "And a veteran." Her smile flickered. She hadn't expected that. She leaned down again. "Then you won't mind proving it. Open the garage. Give us the code." The Tahoe behind me revved its engine slightly. Intimidation tactic. I slowly reached into my pocket. One of the men stiffened. But I didn't pull out a weapon. I pulled out my phone. "Sheriff's Department," I said as the line connected. "This is Daniel Carter. I'm being unlawfully detained and blocked in my driveway by individuals claiming HOA authority." Brenda's face drained of color. "You wouldn't dare," she hissed. I looked her dead in the eye. "I don't bluff." The men exchanged glances. One whispered something to her. She waved him off, but the confidence was gone. Within 7 minutes, 2 sheriff cruisers rolled into the cul-de-sac. Deputies stepped out, hands resting casually near their belts. They took one look at the boxed-in setup and their expressions hardened. "Ma'am," one deputy said to Brenda, "why are you blocking this resident's vehicle?" "Routine inspection," she said quickly. "He's non-compliant." "With what?" the deputy asked. "Our security bylaws." The deputy turned to me. "Sir, they demanded my vault code," I said, "and blocked my exit when I refused." The deputy's jaw tightened. "Ma'am," he said slowly, "HOAs cannot demand access codes to private safes. And blocking someone's vehicle constitutes unlawful restraint." The word hit like a slap. Unlawful restraint. The thick-necked men suddenly looked much smaller. Brenda tried one last move. "We're protecting the community." The deputy's voice went cold. "You're about 5 seconds away from protecting yourselves from a lawsuit." They moved their vehicles. But it didn't end there. Because that night, I found a notice taped to my door. Emergency HOA hearing. Alleged violations. Fine. $10,000 pending investigation. They thought they could bleed me legally since they couldn't bully me physically. They still didn't know who they were dealing with. You don't survive combat without learning strategy. And you don't protect your brothers overseas without learning how to document everything. I had dashcam footage, security cameras covering my driveway, audio recordings from my truck. I had timestamps, faces, threats captured in high definition. And I had something else. I had time. The emergency hearing was scheduled for Friday evening at the clubhouse. Word spread fast. Half the neighborhood showed up. Brenda sat at the front table like a queen holding court. The two compliance officers stood near the wall. She opened with a rehearsed speech about community safety concerns and unregistered tactical storage units. When it was my turn, I didn't raise my voice. I connected my laptop to the projector. The first video played, the Range Rover sliding across the road, blocking my exit. Gasps filled the room. The second clip, Brenda clearly stating, "Give us the code." Murmurs turned into angry whispers. The third clip, the Tahoe revving behind me. Then the audio of her saying, "That's intentional," when I asked why they were blocking me. Silence. I let it sit there. Then I pulled up the sheriff's incident report. And finally, I displayed the HOA bylaws. There was no clause, none, that granted access to private safes. The update she cited had never been voted on by residents. She'd made it up. You could see it in her eyes, the moment control slipped away. One older resident stood up. "You tried to extort him." Another said, "You hired goons with our dues." A third shouted, "What else have you done?" Brenda's composure cracked. "This is about safety." "No," I said quietly. "This is about power." I then did something she never expected. I announced I had already consulted an attorney specializing in HOA abuse cases. And that unless the board resigned immediately and retracted all fines, a civil suit for unlawful detention, harassment, and defamation would be filed Monday morning. The room erupted. Within 15 minutes, 2 board members publicly distanced themselves from her actions. By the end of the night, Brenda stormed out of the clubhouse. She resigned 3 days later. The compliance officers were never seen again. But the real victory wasn't her resignation. It was what happened next. Neighbors started talking, comparing stories, fines that didn't make sense, threats, selective enforcement. An independent audit was demanded. Turns out HOA funds had been used for security consultations that didn't exist. Thousands of dollars unaccounted for. The sheriff's department opened an investigation. The woman who tried to force her way into my vault ended up fighting to keep herself out of a courtroom. And me, I went back to mowing my lawn, attending my VA appointments, living quietly. But something changed in the neighborhood. People waved more, talked more, stood up more, because bullies thrive in silence. And veterans don't stay silent when someone tries to seize control through intimidation. A week after her resignation, a young neighbor knocked on my door. "I just wanted to say thank you," he said. "My dad's a Marine. He always said you don't let tyrants take an inch." I smiled. "It's not about inches," I told him. "It's about lines. You draw them, and you hold them." The oak trees still sway the same way in the morning. The sprinklers still tick. But now when I back out of my driveway, the road is clear. They thought they were demanding a vault code. What they really unlocked was a community that refused to be bullied. And if there's one thing I learned overseas, it's this. Freedom isn't only defended on battlefields. Sometimes, it's defended in your own driveway.